morning, everybody. And as we kind of finish up August here and start a new month of September, we got to kind of pick up on what this temperature pattern is going to do. So I want to start there today. You've got your forecast high temperatures in the numbers, and then the coloring represents the difference from normal. So we can see how hot it is going to be out throughout the west today in the Pacific Northwest as this very large ridge develops here. A lot of the cooler weather you see down here in New Mexico and Texas is dominated by cloud cover and precipitation, but watch the heat just stay in the west as we go into Thursday, where the heat actually builds into the northern plains here, possibly triple-digit temperatures in Montana, North and South Dakota, and this extends into the Canadian prairie as well. But we are going to watch a weak system roll through the northern part of the Canadian prairie and drop a front, bringing some relief to the northern plains by Friday, and also a chance of some storms. But you can see here that the west just continues to stay with temperatures 105 degrees or hotter in parts of the Central Valley and deep into the 90s and triple digits here in parts of the Pacific Northwest. Now, as we go into the weekend, that cooler air spreads with that front, you can see there, and presses on through the eastern Great Lakes. And that's going to initiate a chance for some storms in this area. But after that, the heat just returns throughout a broad section here of the western United States. Going into Monday and Tuesday, that ridge is still in place, but we're going to watch to see what happens after maybe the 7th or 8th to see if this whole pattern really starts to break down. And we'll come back to more of the details on the precipitation around the rest of the country in just a few seconds, but I've really been spending a lot of time watching the changes in these maps. So as you're going to watch this here with me, the blues represent troughs of low pressure, and cooler and unsettled weather, the ridges are the hot and dry features. So as we play through this week, you can see that large ridge we've been discussing really just dominate here in the midsection of the United States, pressing back toward the western United States. And that's what's helping all that heat come through. We see this weak little short wave here. See it right there? That's the one that initiates the storms that could possibly come through later in the weekend. And honestly, it's the wave out ahead of it here that delivers that front that comes through Friday and Saturday through the upper Midwest. But what we're all watching very carefully is if that ridge shows any signs of breaking down next week. And here we are on the 6th, going toward the 7th and 8th, and the models pretty far out there in the forecast have been suggesting this trough developing here, possibly kicking a storm system off through the Canadian prairie that will drag a front through the midsection of the country. And as it does so, could really initiate the chance or the chance development of a large storm system here. So I'm watching this carefully. This was a part of that spread in the models that I've been talking about, and some of this is actually being initiated by this tropical system that's coming up toward Japan here soon that's going to influence the pattern. It's all very kind of nuanced, but it is there to be watched. So if we just distill all this down into two maps, while that ridge dominates, we have some isolated storms today, Colorado, parts of Nebraska, and Kansas. We have the isolated storms in New England today. But abundant Gulf moisture kind of soaks parts of Texas through the lower Mississippi River Valley into the southeast. And we have that weekend chance for some storms as the front slides through Friday and Saturday and Sunday through the upper Midwest. But the biggest difference is in the week 2 forecast, where this had been forecast to be relatively dry. Fully into week 2, the breakdown of the pattern starting around the 7th, 8th, and 9th could initiate a storm system in here that delivers more rainfall. Now, just to keep this all in context, I did put in the report today the kind of the stats here for the month of August, just to kind of look at the precipitation ranks and where that heaviest rain will be continuing to hit down here in the south. Just to understand that we have several climate reporting districts having their wettest August on record. We're going to continue to add to that. Interestingly enough, though, the additional rainfall here is not from tropical systems. The latest update, I was kind of waiting on this morning here. We got the 80% that's been maintained for that lead wave here in the open Atlantic. The wave behind it coming off of Africa has been updated to a 50% chance of development. And then this is kind of a new system that's kind of shown up here well east of Bermuda, but they've now given it a 70% chance of developing and possibly getting a name. As we look out there at the forecast tracks, just an update here, we are not seeing any of these systems coming close to the United States. Very low probability of that occurring. So here's what we got going on today. As we play through the middle of today, we do see scattered storms. See them stretching in through this area, possibly putting down some rainfall in some spots that have been extremely dry, but it's going to be hyper-local rainfall. You then see in New England, we still have more scattered storms rolling through there. Throughout much of the rest of this week, it's going to be down here farther to the south that our best chances of showers and storms will be. There'll be isolated storms throughout the country. I mean, it's just late summer, we get that. But it won't be until that front slides through on Friday that we really start to pick up better chances of storms in the upper Midwest. So the pattern here over the next few days is a lot of isolated and scattered convection with the heaviest rains farther to the south. Now, when we just distill down the next week or so, this is our map looking at total accumulated precipitation. Most areas through here will be dry and will be very dry throughout the western United States and the Canadian prairie. But our heaviest rains are expected to be along the Gulf Coast. All right, we do have better storm chances here into parts of New England. I want to show you the new European model data, though, to kind of get the timing of these next couple of systems. So by Thursday, you see this low going through parts of northern Manitoba. That's the front that gets dragged through on Friday. We see that there could be some storms initiating along that front. Until then, a lot of scattered convection down south as that ridge really stays quite open. Now going into next Sunday and Monday, this is where I'm going to keep a very close eye here. So nothing's really changed too much down here across the south, just increased chances of rainfall. But you see by next Tuesday and Wednesday, we start to watch a system emerge, possibly here, that could really draw on a lot of Gulf moisture. If a low develops in this area and there's high pressure off to the east, the combined two just really pull a lot of moisture up into this area. And that's what I think a lot of us are concerned about developing here. But I mean, this is really far out in the forecast, just something we're going to have to keep our eyes on right now. Until then, our all hazards weather map kind of tells the story. The excessive heat warnings and watches, the heat advisories, the red flag warnings across the west, while there's still flood watches down here in parts of the south. The temperature pattern over the next 15 days just continues to show the heat through that first week of September. But then as we get out there, watch this. This is now the second week. See things breaking down a bit? That's when that system could come through the midsection of the country. Now we'll have to watch to see how highly amplified it is and if it delivers some cooler air. But do note that once we get to the middle of the month, maybe a return toward more normal temperatures here. And this might get me watching very carefully for the potential for that, those temperatures down there in the 40s, maybe even getting a little cooler than that in the northern plains. Now that's really far out there to really kind of stress and stretch for a forecast, but I'll watch it carefully to see if this kind of manifests itself. Other than that, though, I still don't see any early risk of frost at this point through the midpoint of September. Now, to finish this up, I want to give you an international update. Please give a good read to the last section in today's report. We talk about the start of the Brazilian growing season and where there could be a quick start if the forecast verifies with wetter conditions north. Again, this forecast with wetter conditions north in Brazil, dry south and into Argentina is very La Nina-like. If the La Nina maintains its dominance, this will likely verify. If it backs off and the MJO starts to move around, I could see some major caveats to it. Also, just want to take you to Europe really quickly. The heat wave that we were seeing in Russia has moved east. It's over Kazakhstan now. We do have a little bit of heat coming back into this part of Central Europe, which has been enduring a long-standing drought. But a low wrapping through the British Isles here will initiate quite a bit of thunderstorm activity. And there was actually yesterday some major hail that was falling here. I believe there was even a fatality from some of that hail. But we're drier the farther to the east you go into this region here, getting over into Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and Poland. Lastly, I want to show you what's been going on in China. We continue to see along the Yangtze River and south very dry conditions in this particular area. And one of the things I'm going to link for you in today's email report and also below this video is this website. It's from the Climate Prediction Center. It allows you to choose a time interval, and using the CPC gridded gauge data, you can come in and see what the drought situation looks like. So for example, I just clicked right in here in southeastern China, and you can see abundant rain through July, and then they just flatlined ever since. And this has put them in a pretty sizable deficit for precipitation. So this is just a great resource you can all be using to kind of keep track of some of these international weather issues. Okay, I'll wrap it up there, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Thanks.